This video is going to be a little bit different. Anybody who's seen, I would say, even a third of my videos on YouTube knows I talk a lot about movies and shows. I give my take and my reviews of movies I've seen, TV shows I've seen. And usually when I talk about a TV show, I talk about it either in whole, like I give a review of the whole show, or I might give a review of one season, especially if it's a newer show, like I did with, Shining Vale or Wednesday Addams or whatever it may be. But this time I'm going to talk about a specific episode. And this last SVU episode that came out entitled Truth Embargo, the second episode of the 25th season. And wow, part of me still can't believe that they even made it, they made it this far. I mean, they've come a long way, 25 seasons. This may be the last season, maybe possibly 26, but digress a little bit. What I did not know at first, and I actually just finished the episode earlier, and it did not get good reception. Some people are saying that they might have been okay with it, they kind of liked it, but just by reading the comments on Reddit and Internet Movie Database and places like that, most people just said they hated it. And so here's what it's about. As Benson teams up with the FBI on an unsolved case, which is searching for Maddie Flynn, Finn and Velasco investigate a flash mob robbery that led to a sexual assault. Internet Movie Database gave it a 48%. Now, I don't see anything yet from Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know have Rotten Tomatoes even commented on this episode. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm checking right now so I don't see a specific number that they've given it. Maybe they're still in the process of deciding. I'm not entirely sure. But what I really want to get to is the comments on Reddit. And I'll tell you right now, just a lot of stuff here. I mean, people just were not pleased. And I'll read the comments on here, and then I'll give my take on the episode. So the post here says, Season 25, Episode 2, Truth Embargo. Excuse me. What are we doing here? A bunch of teenagers can overrun an NYPD precinct and nobody gets dropped, and Olivia just lets them take stuff? Then a woman doesn't want to identify her rapist because she's worried about ruining his life? Her white guilt takes over? We're 2 episodes in, and I'm already wondering why I came back this season. The original Law & Order proper dropped Jeff Donovan for the guy from Venom. I think that's, what's his name, Reed. But the stories are still good. Organized crime has potential this season. SVU is getting silly. Now, I want to get to a specific comment that I came across. This isn't the one, but let me read this. This person here says, this episode confused me. They're trying to be too politically correct. I felt weird about them trying to have sympathy for a rapist, but also agree providing offenders with therapy, etc. is a good thing too. Also, is Olivia ever not traumatized? The Maddie thing is just so odd. Her character seems more like a savior now, and we're only 2 episodes in. Is Olivia going to become a counselor and leave SVU? Now, one reply to the comment says, it's possible to humanize a rapist. It's even possible to make them sympathetic, like perhaps they're suffering from something. They have evil compulsions and need help and feel massive remorse for what they do, of course, without justifying the crime or invalidating the suffering of their victims. But the guy basically said he did it because he wanted attention, and his remorse was even half-assed. Like, goodness gracious, this episode was dreadful. One person says, I laughed out loud through the entire episode. One of the most ridiculous things I have seen. Now, I think this is the one I wanted to get to right here. Somebody here named Fair Margaret commented and said, you and me both. The idea of fearing that your rapist's life will be ruined because he's just a kid is not only ridiculous, it is insulting to the many real rape victims. And then The way they topped it off with the rapist suddenly becoming remorseful and going on about how he never thought he mattered, etc., was totally unbelievable and just an obvious nod to political correctness taken to the extreme. I wondered who the audience was for this episode. I'm also tired of Liv having hallucinations about Maddie and the NYPD being okay with a group of vandals invading their squad room and stealing their work computers and trashing the place. Okay, now I'll be honest with you. Now, when I saw that part, I said, and this is just me thinking from the audience perspective, I'm just sitting here saying, you know what? Just shoot them all. Like, just shoot them. You don't have to shoot them in the head dead. Just shoot them in the leg or arm or something. Just make them go down. Just do something. That part I didn't get. It's like, why? I mean, goodness gracious. Now, Liv was only concerned that none of the criminals got hurt. What has happened to her? I was also surprised that none of them asked the reluctant victim how'd she feel when her assailant raped another woman if she let him walk in. For the record, I am a liberal who worked in the criminal justice system on the defense side for many years. I had many juvenile clients. I know there is unfairness in the system, and I'm also not under any illusion. This episode was really infuriating and went a long way in legitimizing many of the criticisms of those who really are concerned with fairness. But simply being young or being a minority does not mean that everyone in that demographic is automatically innocent or not responsible for their actions. Okay, that's a fair point. I can agree with that. Generalizations are always harmful, and although the SVU folks might mean well, I find they just make it worse. If alive, okay, they spelled it wrong. They were trying to say Olivia, but I'm sure that was an autocorrect. If Olivia continues down this path, she should do everyone a favor and quit the force and just become a youth counselor. So here's the deal. So in this episode, the victim, her name was Natalie, and she had been assaulted and raped by a young black male who I believe he was 18 years old, named Jay. Now, Natalie, she looked like she was in her late 20s, early 30s, so I'm assuming she had to have been like 28 to 31 or something like that. So she's a young white woman, and she was raped by a young black male. Now, when the prosecutor asked her to identify the victim in court, identify the defendant in court, identify the rapist, she paused and she froze and she went out into the hallway and talked to Carisi and Benson. And she basically kind of gave this statement about, well, you know what? If I put him in prison now, I have an adopted brother who was black and you know, if I send this guy to prison, it'll ruin his life, and people need to talk about rehabilitation after prison because, you know, that's how people get better. Now, eventually she goes back in the courtroom and she identifies him and says, yeah, that's the guy who raped me. And he discusses it with the prosecutor and his defense attorney, and they reach a plea deal. So they didn't specify how much time he was getting. They just said, okay, you're not getting life. But apparently he was guilty of rape, sexual assault, you know, robbery, harassment, conspiracy. And according to the New York laws, because this show takes place in New York, so they abide by the actual New York rules and laws. In real life, that probably would have been about, you're looking at for sure no less than, I would say 20 to 25 years. Maybe some people probably would even say 30. I mean, I guess it, and I'm assuming that based on how the dialogue went in that episode, he probably did 10 years about. Now, I was looking at a comment on YouTube, and one young lady on here said in response to this episode, gross promotion of rape against women and not pressing charges as long as the man who rapes you is darker. Now, by the way, she didn't say the word rape. She said grape both times. I don't know. And again, I don't know. Are we allowed to say that word here on YouTube? I mean, I just said it a few times, so I don't know if this video is going to get taken down or not. So if I apologize for the offense, but I'm just saying, I'm just describing what happened in the episode here. So, needless to say, this was not a favorite episode. This will probably go down as what many people would see as one of the worst episodes that this show has done. I think there are far worse episodes that this show has done. I have another video entitled The Worst Episodes of SVU. There was an episode entitled, Home Invasion? I think it was in season 17 or 18. There's another episode called Raw, which was season 7. That was about white supremacy. And I think there might have been another episode in there I talked about. I can't remember off top. But due to it being one of the worst episodes, I mean, it's... I probably don't remember it off top for a reason. Now, this person here says, as a person of color and a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, I'm sorry, there's way too many letters and stuff and digits, whatever going on in that thing. Listen, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I just say LGB. Once I say that, people know what I'm talking about. So it's whatever. But as a member of that community, this episode was one of the cringiest since the Burton and Javon Brown episodes. This show has over 500 episodes, so I can't remember that right off top. It was so heavy-handed and white savior-esque. I noticed with the Burton redemption arc, in this case, and the ones from last year, it seems like the writer's room and screenwriters were leaning towards giving the assailant and perps a redeeming factor in the midst of committing these heinous crimes. Henry Messner, Ty Hackman, Burton Lowe, Elias Olson, Jay Watson. I know the Elias Olson, when that name sounds really familiar, I can't place that off top. I remember Burton Lowe. That was the guy who dated Benson in college. All these individuals were made out to look like poor victims who were failed by the justice system in their upbringing. This episode tried to highlight the fact that the prison system treats black and brown people horribly, while also highlighting that the victim wanted to protect her rapist and spare him the perils of unfair treatment by the law. Now look, so I understood where the girl was coming from, and even as Benson has said, listen, I appreciate that the girl had a heart and had a sense of thoughtfulness. But at the same time, we got to keep it real here. We got to be truthful about this. I mean, if you go so far as to sexually assaulting somebody, I mean, there has to be a punishment for that. And I'm sure I might get many comments on this video that would agree with me and some that will disagree. And by the way, whatever you put down there, just keep it respectful. That's all. I'm no psychologist or anything like that. And I'm no mental expert, but I have debated with some people in the past, and they've said they've talked to people and they've concluded that the reason why a lot of certain people commit certain types of crimes is because of either home problems or social problems, guys who have trouble getting a girlfriend or they've dealt with abusive parents. I said, but my thing about that is this. I personally don't understand how things like that just somehow make a person think, well, I can just start assaulting and raping people, so therefore, that makes it okay. I don't know. I just stand by the stance of, hey, if you rape somebody, there is going to be time for it. And I think according to New York laws, rape is 5 years. I know that varies in different states. Like, Michigan is between 1 and 99 years. That's odd how that is. And if you think I'm making that up, seriously, look it up. Go to Wikipedia, type in rape laws in the U.S. It goes state by state. That's literally what it says. Some states are 5 years. Some states are 1 year. Some states are 20 years. It depends. But I'm just going by New York because, again, this is where this show takes place. So I just don't... Wow, people just didn't like this episode. Now, I'll tell you this. The main thing about this episode that I liked and appreciated was the fact that it highlighted that very discussion. And this is another reason why. This is the main reason why I like this show. And I think this is the best crime show / legal drama that I've seen out of any crime show in legal drama, is that it highlights the complexities of conversations like that. It highlights it emphasizes the flaws in the justice system. It shares my views on a lot of the flaws regarding the justice system. They talked about many different things. They covered the Terry Schiavo case. I think that was an episode in season 7. As far as, hey, should we pull the plug or should we leave it in and let and I mean, overall, I guess I would give this episode I'm not going to lie and say I think this was the best episode, but at the same time, I don't think it was the very worst. Because again, I have a video where I talked about worst episodes. And you can go back and watch the video and you can have your own opinion as far as which ones you thought were the worst, were the best, whatnot. But, I mean, that person who made that comment, I mean, they're right. You do something like that, you have to take responsibility for that action. Nobody else is going to take that responsibility for you. And so he could have stopped himself. He could have not done the sexual assault. And he probably wouldn't be a totally free man because he did commit the other crimes, the robbery and all that stuff. But at least that would be one less crime committed. So, wow, this episode caused quite a stir. And to anybody who's a real SVU fan and you saw the episode, you know what I'm talking about. To those of you who haven't seen it yet, or to those of you who may not be SVU fans, but this video made you curious as to, what it was all about, it's available to watch on Peacock, season 25, episode 2, entitled Truth Embargo. Let's see. This person continued to say, "Excuse me? Is this not the Special Victims Unit? And that cringy speech in Carice's office about taking responsibility? OMG, just stop. Not to mention the flash mob that's able to get up to their floor without anyone stopping them downstairs. This is the second episode where the writers show us how easily it is to get up on the unit without someone intervening. Whatever is happening over on SVU, I need them to knock it off. They're embarrassing themselves and hindering a show with a monumental milestone this year. And looking at the comments this latest episode received, it's not helping SVU to get it an historic season 26. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't think that Carice's speech was cringy. Because, I mean, the young man came up and he did say, yeah, you know what? What she alleged that I did that. And he said blah, blah, blah. Now, I think that his speech on it, the guy's speech, Jay, I mean, it was kind of inexcusable. It's not that defensible. The only thing I say to that is he did what a lot of criminals on that show and a lot of criminals in real life don't do, and they haven't done. He had the balls to own up to what he did, and that's why they gave him less time compared to what they initially would have given him. They initially would have given him something next to life, I'm assuming. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like he got acquitted. Now, if he got acquitted, ooh, boy. The ratings on this show are already at 48%. If he got acquitted, it probably would have been down to 28 or lower. This episode was something else. I'm telling you, this is why I love this show so much. It covers a lot of these complex topics. No other crime show has done it to this degree, at least not that I've seen. One girl here says, as a lesbian, this pissed me off. They'd never write a straight man having this reaction to his wife being raped. Like, come on, lesbians are humans too. And if this happened to my wife, I sure as hell wouldn't react like this. So bizarre. Who even writes this mess anymore? A person in reply said, making her a lesbian was on purpose, in my opinion. They're clearly trolling white liberals, progressives, and allies. I'm pretty sure there's no one under the age of 40 in that writing room, and that they mostly lean conservative. This was very obvious. Woke mind virus writing. So now SVU is taking off a lot of the LGBT community. My goodness. This person right here says, I've been rewatching the show since the beginning, but I'm becoming less and less likely to keep watching to this point. This show sounds like it completely tanked after Amaro left. Nick Amaro, who was played by Danny Pino. This was such a horribly written and executed episode. I'm black myself, and I feel that they were sending such a terrible message. It seemed as if they wanted the viewers to sympathize with a rapist just because he was black. It was BS pandering, and I hope they don't pull this BS again. Very disappointing episode. The reply to that comment says, I am a black woman, and this episode really made me angry. The suggestion that any woman should feel guilty about punishing a rapist is ludicrous and dangerous. Aren't most sexual predators repeat offenders? One person here says, I watched episode 1 and 2 in one go And what drew my attention was not the individual storylines, but the overall arc. SVU, in its inception, is an episodic series. Later on, it started developing small arcs within the series. This season, I think it's going to be one big arc being developed while other cases will be investigated. At the focal point of this arc, Olivia. And I love a good arch. I'm sorry, did I say arch? Arc. Okay, they put arch on here. It was supposed to be ARC. They put ARCH. I'm losing it right now. Arc. That said, I understand what people didn't like about this episode, but I liked it. A different perspective that had nothing to do with knowing if the guy was guilty, but exploring the lack of trust the population has with the police. This was explored in episode 1 and further emphasized in 2 and will likely have a big impact on the arc. Next episode will likely bring us another aspect we will need for the big picture. This episode was really bad. So that's that. So tell me, to all my SVU fans, tell me right now, what did you think of this episode? What do you think the message of the episode was? Do you think they were planning a good message, or do you think they were trying to pander to an audience? If you didn't watch the episode, go watch it on Peacock and tell me what you think. Like and subscribe. I got a lot more coming.